Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the official launch of Adept Integrator, the solution for seamless and rapid integration with all of your enterprise business systems. My name is Scott Lamond, and joining me is Jean Grobler, Adept Integration Solutions Architect. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You've joined the presentation using your computer speaker system for audio by default, but if you'd like to join over the telephone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to myself and Jean by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view the recording. But we're very excited to introduce all of you, our customers, and some interested potential customers to Adept Integrator, the newest member of the Adept product suite. We've got a varied audience on the webinar today. Business folks, IT, systems integration people, engineering folks, and so on. So our goal is to share information at a high level, and then we'll get a little more technical, perhaps too technical for some, but we won't stay there long, and then we'll wrap it all up at the end. So with that, let's get started. So we've been doing system integrations with Adept with our customers for over the past 15 years. Perhaps many of you have worked with us on an integration for your organization. Connecting business systems can have a massive impact on your business for reasons that may be clear to you already or will become clear to you as we move through today's presentation. But first, here's the real difference between what we've been doing and what we're now offering with Adept Integrator. Put simply, Adept Integrator is an out-of-the-box integration platform that makes integration with IT systems, ERP systems, financial systems, nearly any other business application easy, fast, and affordable. It empowers you to orchestrate and automate data flows across any number of systems to accelerate your business performance and support your business goals. Now, when we talk about integration, what kind of scenarios are we talking about here? It can be anything, really. In one of the email invitations that went out for this webinar, I outlined a scenario we see commonly. A customer using SAP Plant Maintenance, or Maximo, or JD Edwards, shown here on the right, to control access and modification of as-built documentation that may be of a plant, utility infrastructure, facility, pipeline, or mining facility. And they're using Adept to manage their as-built and project documents. But there's no connection between the systems. As work orders are created in the asset management system, there's no link to the correct document versions in Adept that are associated with the work order. There's no link to the safety instructions, equipment manuals, and SOPs that are needed by engineering. There's no way to view the documents from within the asset management or ERP solution. And when the work order is printed, the documents are not printed with it. So with Adept Integrator, we can automate all of that. And for our clients who may be managing pipelines, utility infrastructure, mines, government agencies managing critical facilities, geospatial data may be important. We've seen this at the Coast Guard, the Marine Corps, and others. From within a GIS system like ESRI, being able to zoom into an area of a map and instantly access all the relevant documents and work orders associated with that geolocation. This kind of integration was critical for the Coast Guard when dealing with national disaster scenarios like Hurricane Katrina. And John will introduce you now to another scenario we're working on, the new customer of ours, a very large mining organization.
Thank you, Scott. Well, what I'm going to talk to you about right now is a scenario, and a scenario we're planning out with this particular client, and this might give you some ideas, and really what we're trying to achieve by this is just expand your thinking with regards to what we can do. So let me paint this picture for you. In the scenario above, we have a request for money, an opportunity. Let's say a project needs to be created, and the client user is coming into this through a SharePoint platform. Once they come into the SharePoint platform, they need to update this opportunity, and they need to build a forecast of how they're going to spend the money, or how that time phase of that money is going to be run through the project. And from there, we need to take this data and we need to scrape out the forecast information and update that into a cost management system. In this instance, it could be Prism Cost Management, or G2. And then from there, once it's updated into the cost management system and the project has been created, it needs to go up into some sort of business intelligence tool at the top end, so that the users, executives, can see how the portfolio of projects may look. From there, the opportunity has been created. Now, the client needs to apply for funds, or we need to go through some sort of workflow, or what I would call a delegation of authority, to approve those funds. And in that process, we would need to go into another form, another area within SharePoint to update that form, or what we would call the request for approval, or the request for capital. And in this instance, obviously, we've filled in some details from the opportunity form, and what would be great is if we could take that data from Prism, the cost management tool, and pre-populate the form for the request for capital. From there, that document is created, and then there might be other artifacts which need to get created, other documents, other Excel sheets, CAD drawings, engineering drawings, whatever they may be. And once those are all being collated and we've got a full pack, we can submit that document, and then by submitting that document, that pack drops down into the Adept engine. And from there, that document is created, and now we can go through a whole approval process, and the whole workflow process, which is built in native within the Adept tool, is now managed. What will happen from there is that an approve or a reject will happen. And once we've gone through certain panel reviews and the project's approved in our example, now let's just assume a positive example, it now updates the cost management system where a change management event will happen. Now, in true project terms, a change event needs to happen in order to amend a cost, a time, or a schedule or forecast. And so in this instance, the change process is kicked off in the cost management solution. This then is approved and then updates your Prism, your P6 schedule, which is your scheduling tool, and then of course your ERP at the end of the day, where the budget actually comes from. So what we're finding here is we're finding an entire instrument of orchestration happening between 4 or 5 different systems through a capital process, and the heart of that system being Adept and the workflow components of Adept. Now, as you saw, an exchange function came up as well, and what we do in this instance is we're able to use Exchange as an emailing and notification system so that users can approve, reject, view a whole lot of scenarios or workflows or notices, as well as for those of us who are more technically minded, we can use that function with an email as an error notification process, so we know where a process has fallen flat or something to that effect. But essentially, if you have to look at this as an orchestra, we've got a number of instruments playing in this orchestra, and the data is being moved seamlessly through the user experience, and the user is only having to put the data in once. And that's the fundamental philosophy. Input data once and have it go through and synchronize to various other systems following a business process. So how do we do this? I think that's really the key question. And I'm going to go through the next couple of slides. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do. Well, I've bulleted some points here. And firstly, the way we do this is we do this through a visual object-orientated approach. We don't draw up or build any code. So with that, it allows us to orchestrate and automate triggers from different applications at different times. And we're able to allow different applications to trigger an event within our application or within, let's say, Adept. We have this monitoring philosophy, which is web-based, so we can see how this business process is flowing and whether it's running smoothly or whether there are any time delays or lags in that process. And then, of course, how do we connect to this world? And I'm going to spend a lot more time on this today, but suffice to say is that we have a number of connectors. These connectors are certified by the industry solution vendors such as SAP and Oracle, IBM, Salesforce. And with these pre-built connectors, they allow us to bring different instruments or different tools to participate in our integration and our orchestration. A lot of our clients ask, is this safe? Is it secure? Is my data being pervaded? And the question, and the answer to the question is, your data is safe. We don't pervade the data anywhere. There's no staging tables where data is pervaded, opening an opportunity for data to leak. The environment is a closed environment, and we can build encryption within the layer and the platform. And then, of course, we can engage and interact with both internal to your firewall or internal to your LAN, as well as to a hosted environment, or software as a solution tool set. So the data is secure. The last point, and I don't want to get into too much technical details around this, but for those of us which understand in-memory data gridding, what this gives the tool and the platform the ability to do is to scale dynamically in terms of hardware performance. And we will spend a little bit more time, and we'll unpack this a little bit more as we go into the demonstration or into the presentation. But suffice to say, we have a philosophy and a protocol called in-memory data grid architecture, which allows us to grow that application set. So, integrating into SAP, JD Edwards, Oracle, Microsoft SharePoint, these are the pre-built connectors. What one has the ability to do is have bidirectional transfer, integration between these two, between source system and target systems. And it's not necessarily a one-way consumption of data or a push of data. It is a bidirectional flow of data based on certain business rules or validations which get put in place. By doing this, we're able to reduce mistakes from users, because every process or every integration really comes from some sort of manual process where a human has interacted with a tool and is putting data into a tool or working with a particular business process. And the minute a human gets involved, there's the propensity to make a mistake. And by automating this, and especially mundane kind of tasks, we can reduce these mistakes. By reducing mistakes, we increase business performance, we're able to process data a lot quicker, and then of course by increasing business performance, we're reducing operational cost. This then creates a uniform, singular integration platform across all the applications in your business. Consolidating data into BI and other tools is very simply done. So the takeaway point for you here is that we can deploy integrations in a fraction of time as traditional methods, what I would term point-to-point type integrations. And all the systems will truly work together in a bidirectional manner. So how does it fit into your landscape or your IT landscape? This is a very simplistic diagram, and essentially what you would see is at the lowest level you've got your corporate network, your business applications. We would have our integration layer, which is our platform for Adept Integrator, and then you would have your Adept suite of products connecting up to it. So essentially you've got a target and a source, and the target could be either Adept or it could be SAP or any one of the business systems at the lower end, as well as supporting your business intelligence and your executive information layer. So let's talk a little bit more about what type of connectors. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this slide because it's really important to unpack this slide in a lot more detail. So where do we start? On the left-hand side, as you look at your screen, you'll see the magenta semicircle with a whole lot of applications listed. These are the applications of what we would term pre-built connectors. These are available, open for us to utilize and connect up with your systems. What's great about it is that if I take one example, let's say SAP or Oracle, we don't have to be SAP or Oracle experts to connect up with SAP. In essence, we use the connector to connect up with SAP and expose the fields or the modules that we need to integrate with in terms of our integration, thereby allowing us to connect up and work with SAP in a fraction of the time as it would be if we were to develop this through a point-to-point type approach. On the right-hand side, let's say, for example, we do not have a pre-built connector. And in most cases, we do have, or in some instances, I should say, we have cases where clients don't have a pre-built connector available. So how would we connect up with them? And if you have a look there, you will see a little icon called Web Services. And in that instance, we would use web services which are available native to that application or that particular application. And a lot of applications have a number of web services, or what we would call APIs, application program interfaces, available to them. And we can connect up with these APIs or web services and bring them into our orchestration. We support all kinds of web services and all the protocols. We will support any SOAP-based protocol. We'll support JSON, RESTful web services, and of course XML. Going further, if we weren't able to connect up with a web service, and really this is a completely bespoke application and no web service or API exists, we can even go down to the database layer and connect up at the database layer. But we always do this circumspectly. We do this carefully because when one connects up with the database directly and doesn't native database inserts or upserts, one has the propensity to invalidate business logic. And in that instance, we work very closely with the application or the client in that scenario. But we can build the business validation and the logic within Integrator to ensure that that insert or upsert of data is not compromising the business logic of the application. What is really cool as well is that if you had the propensity or they had the opportunity to connect to your own mobile devices and bring the next standard, the next wave in, the Internet of Things, and I'm sure we've all heard of the Internet of Things, which is represented by the IoT, we can bring connection and bring applications, let's say, for example, your vehicle, your refrigerator, into an orchestration, so to say. Bringing supply chain closer together, bringing the field closer to you in terms of the integration, which you may need. And then, of course, we can do file management and then EDI and supply chain kind of integrations as well. So if I have to put this in a nutshell, we have pre-built connectors, and this ecosystem is growing daily, weekly, monthly, and they pre-built and defined and built with us and the industry solution vendors. And if that does not exist, we can also connect up using protocols. These are standard protocols which are available in the industry. So what we can do is we can connect with almost any application there is in the world and bring that into our integration. So I speak a lot about powerful orchestration. And there are some terms which I'm going to put out there with you today. And the first term is the third bullet point on the top slide would be business process modeling. Can we do business process modeling? Yes, absolutely. This is how we do all our integrations. We model business processes. Then the next question would be, can we do extract, transform, and load? It's a simple ETL process. And some clients want to take data out of Adept or their ERP and put it into their business intelligence or BI tools. Absolutely, that's very simply done. We can do the extract, the transform, and the load, and I'll show you some examples of that a little later in some screenshots. And then, of course, we have this enterprise service bus capability as well. And what is Enterprise Service Bus or ESB capability? That very simply is, if we have to look at a number of, as in my example, the scenario where we've got 6 or 7 different applications participating in an integration, we're able to build business logic and route the integrations through triggers, events, timestamps, or the like into an integration and ensure that the messages and the integration is done, managed, queued, and delivered on time. So we have this whole ability to do the routing and the transformation of data and integration. Web-based monitoring, I spoke about this a little earlier, in the sense that from a monitoring point of view, you're able to log on and administer the business processes which are available to you to see if the processes and the integrations, or what we would call flows, are running smoothly and are up all the time. And this is really an administrative tool which allows your IT division or your operationals division to actually manage and maintain the integrations. So I'm going to bounce through a couple of slides. I'm going to ask Scott to bounce back and forth. But essentially what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you how and show you how we build an integration. How do we start off with the client? First things we do is we start off with a business process. We go into a process or a consultative engagement with you where we build a business process. We may build it out in swim lanes. In this instance, we've got SharePoint on the left, we've got Adept in the middle, and we've got some sort of ERP on the right-hand side. And what we do is we build the business process, the flows, the validation points, the what-if statements. And through this business process design, we will build this into the screen itself. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing the Integrator Studio tool itself. And as you can see in the middle pane, the main pane, you'll see a business flow starting to be unmapped or starting to be built. And essentially what we do is we build the business process flow as we've done with you in Visio or whatever tool, and we map that out onto the pane and build the flow out. On the left-hand side, where it says Toolbox, you will see, you can't see it very well, but all our connectors and all our protocols are available for us to consume and bring into our business flow. So you will see there's SAP there, there's a whole bunch of applications and connectors which we can bring into the flow. On the right-hand side is our Solution Explorer, and that is a number of business processes all mapped or stuck or strung together. So for example, we might have a DOA process, a delegation of authority process, which participates in a workflow, and that process is linked to one another, and we will see that link between those two business processes in the Solution Explorer. What I'd like to highlight now is that between the process of building this business logic, we need to map data and we need to tell data where certain data needs to be. And if you see, we've got a gray area, and in the main solution pane you will see a little gray block there. It's called DataMapper. The DataMapper is the screens where we show the user, or we start building the mappings of the source and the target system. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing our source system. In this instance, could be it is potentially our cost management system. Sorry, I just needed to check that out. Mapping out to our Adept database, or our Adept system on the right hand side. And what you can see is what we do is we expose the attributes in the fields, and we drag and drop through the lines in the center, the data mapper, which data goes to which field. Now, if I go to the next slide, you will see that I'm able to transform this data as well. This is just another example of a data mapper being used. And you'll see in the middle there we've got this FX function, which we know in Microsoft Excel is a function field. But that really shows that we're able to transform the data, change date fields. Let's say we were working on a European format and we needed to change it over to a US format. We can transform that data. We can make sure that data is inserted prior to data to support a business process, so that we support the business rules of the target system. But essentially this mapping of data is done very simply at this level and can be done at various levels within the business flow. I'm just going to ask there. So go one forward, thanks Scott. So you can see that we can have data mappers at different levels of the flow and have data move at different times. On the top end there, you got the trigger area. If you see, the trigger area is the area where we're able to set certain triggers. So if, for example, we're dealing in the SAP world and we're using our SAP connector and a purchase order gets created, we can have SAP tell us that that purchase order is being created, and we need to move that purchase order data into a source system of some sort. So we can set a number of triggers and times to build that. We can do them on demand, dynamically, or have them listen out for them. So what we're able to do in our tool, as opposed to other tools, is we're able to create triggers be kicked off by a source system. So we're not constantly polling and listening for data, dragging down the resources of your platform. So it is very efficient in terms of that process. I'm going to ask Scott to jump forward a couple of slides now.
Great, and thanks, Sean. So that's kind of an overview of Adept Integrator. We've got a little more to go here. But if you take away one thing from this webinar, know that integration scenarios are virtually limitless. If you can imagine it, we can probably do it. We shared a few scenarios with you today. Through our time working with you over the years, we know there are many other ways you may wish to integrate systems across your enterprise for all the reasons we shared earlier. We've done integrations like some of the ones you see listed here, but the difference is they were expensive, time-consuming, resource-intensive, and difficult to maintain. Adept Integrator really changes all of that. So we'd like to ask for your participation at this point. We've got just a couple of polling questions. Maybe you can give us your feedback on integrations, business system integrations, integrations of Adept with an ERP or a maintenance management solution, work order management solution, you name it, really anything. How important is that to you? And Martha is opening up the poll here. And you should see that question and a couple of answers. And we'll leave this open for just a moment. And then we'll take a look. We'll close out the poll here momentarily and take a look at the results. So it looks like, wow, 51% very important, 43% somewhat important. That was kind of what we expected, and we're really thrilled to see that there's a lot of interest. And let's go to our next poll now. So with that, tell us, what type of systems do you want to integrate with? Martha's opening the poll for us now. Thank you, Martha. Are you looking to integrate with ERP or MRP, enterprise or manufacturing resource planning, CRM, asset management or maintenance management solutions, perhaps PLM or an enterprise content management solution that's deployed, or a GIS solution, perhaps a facilities management solution. We know there's many other options, email, Excel, the list goes on, but we're limited here in terms of how many choices we can give you in this polling area. So let us know your feedback. We'll take a look. Looks like we've got our results. Martha, if you want to close that out. It looks like, yeah, a large portion, 65% in ERP and 36% PLM. So that's great info. And then enterprise asset management and maintenance management, also a big chunk there as well. Wonderful. Thank you all for giving us your feedback on that. And so at this point, let me transition to kind of the licensing model, help you understand how this is offered, and we'll step into that now. And one moment here. All right. So what are the Adept Integrator components? So we start off, there is the Adept Integrator software platform. That's kind of the foundational piece. You've got to have that if you want Adept Integrator. And you would purchase that in either a 4-thread option or an 8-thread option. It actually scales all the way up in increments of 4, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about threads in just a moment. So that's kind of the foundational piece. For most organizations, you'd only need one platform. Next is the connectors. Perhaps you have a need to integrate Adept with something else, perhaps another Tier 1 connector, SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards, IBM, Microsoft Project, Oracle Primavera, and so on, SharePoint. These are all Tier 1 connectors, which means they're robust. They've been built solidly. They've got a lot going on in terms of the understanding the business process and the data flows of those solutions. In terms of Tier 2 connectors, IBM Notes, Exchange, Microsoft Dynamics, Sugar CRM, and SysPro. So you may need a Tier 1 connector, you may need a Tier 2 connector, you may need multiple connectors. And then if there's no connector that exists, perhaps then we'd be looking at developing a custom connector for you based around your requirements. That might be your homegrown, home-developed ERP solution, accounting system. Could be any number of systems that we just don't have a Tier 1 or 2 connector for. But in any situation, there are configuration services. Whether it's a Tier 1 connector, Tier 2, or a custom connector, we're going to do configuration around your requirements. And then there's maintenance on the software, and there is Adept Integrator Studio. So Studio is optional. That's if you want to take ownership of doing your own data mapping, your own business process flows, you can do that with Studio. So that's something you have an option for. I'll say that all of the Tier 1 and Tier 2 connectors have been built using the Studio. So you'd have the same tool that we use to build these connectors. So that's kind of the overview. We'll go just a little bit deeper on some of these. The software platform I mentioned, you'd probably need either the 4-thread or 8-thread option. One platform is sufficient generally, There are exceptions, and 4 threads is sufficient, and we would determine all of this during the discovery. Now let's talk about threads. So there'll be a lot of text coming onto the screen here. The easiest is to just kind of walk through the explanation of threads. So an integrator project may comprise of several processes, each set to work in different timings. One process can be invoked when a new order is entered, another when a new email arrives, another every 30 minutes, and so on. When processes are invoked at the same time, or while other processes haven't yet completed their flow, those are regarded as concurrent processes. And the license limits usage by the amount of processes it can execute simultaneously. So when the integrator license is limited to 4 concurrent Adept Integrator processes, it means the server allows up to 4 integrator processes to run at the same time. Makes sense? And Adept Integrator business process flows can be broken into several subflows, which can be set to run in parallel. So every flow part is regarded as a concurrent process. You can purchase increases in the package capacity in increments of 4. I think the big takeaway we'd want you to have with this is to just know that 4 processes is a tremendous amount of processing power. It is significant, and we believe most of our clients will only need 4 concurrent processes. Even large global insurance agencies would be kind of in the range of 64, and they're doing a tremendous amount of transactions and processes. So that's a little bit of an overview on threads. We certainly talk about that with you in kind of a discovery process. With that, if you're interested in discussing an integration scenario and exploring whether or not Adept Integrator is the right solution for you and your organization, please contact us any way you can. Contact your Adept account manager, the number shown on the screen. You can visit the website, fill out a form there. You can also send me an email here at scott.lamond@synergis.com, and I can direct you to the right person as needed.